As we begin our journey into the elimination system, we need to look a little more closely at the colon, or large intestine. Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Minke. This is Minke Wellness. And so we're going to be going over the structure of the colon as we start to look at this whole process of elimination. And we're just coming off of digestion, so we've already been kind of working down the tube from mouth, down the esophagus, stomach, small intestine. Well, and we just continue on down the tube. Now, the small intestine ends in a sphincter. That sphincter is at the ileocecal valve. And the ileum, I-L-E-U-M, is the lowest part of the small intestine. And it is, like I said, it's controlled by a valve that goes into the cecum, which is the lowest part of the starting part of the colon. And that's over on the right side. Remember where your liver is on the right? We come down where the appendix is. That's the area where the appendix is. And so here's our diagram, just in case so here's where the appendix is. Then we have what's called the ascending colon, and you can see it runs deep. There's a part where it kind of goes back almost behind or to the back side of the liver, bends. There's a fold. It's called the hepatic flexure, hepatic meaning liver, flexure is that bend. So there's the ascending colon, the hepatic flexure, the transverse colon, which comes back forward just underneath the stomach, and then goes back down, toward the back again in the splenic flexure. So the spleen is behind the stomach over here. So this is the splenic flexure, and then we go into the descending colon. We're not done because there's the sigmoid colon, right? It's an S-shaped thing that goes back down deep again to the rectum, and then the rectum and anus. So when I say the elimination system or the elimination part of this tube, we're really talking about all those structures. And if I say the colon, I know it's probably an oversimplification, and someone might be upset with that, but I'm talking about that whole part, to go from cecum, ascending, hepatic flexure, transverse, splenic flexure, descending, sigmoid, rectum, anus. That's the colon. I mean, obviously we could talk about rectum versus anus. That's not the colon. But okay, so you understand what I'm getting at. So when I kind of talk about colon, I'm kind of talking about that whole thing. Okay, so this is this part of the transverse colon there can be a lot of problems in this area, and the gut the colon and the entire abdominal digestive system can be very, very inflamed. You can be very irritated, and these little pockets, these little places where it's supposed to be massaging the peristalsis wave, massaging and moving those things, they can get overstretched, and little pockets, that's called diverticulitis. The folds, the flexures are another area where the system can get stressed, and poop material, fecal material, can get trapped in little pockets and get infected and inflamed. And so there's really a lot of challenges with the colon, and we need to, what we eat and our structure are probably the two biggest impacts of the colon. So what actual food is coming down the tube in terms of, what is is it going to be something that's causing inflammation and that kind of thing? Is it irritating to the system, etc.? And then how I'm sitting, or overall structural support. You've seen me talk about this before. If I'm all hunched over sitting at the desk, what do you think is going to happen to my transverse colon, right? My transverse colon is going to, fold out and fall. And so there's a lot of people whose transverse colons are literally falling, and it pulls, and it can be painful, and start to pull on the whole rib cage, and you just kind of get that old, that little old man, kind of all hunched down in the chest and shuffling along, here I am. And so those are the kind of things that we start looking at the colon and the structure and all the rest of that stuff. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the month here and talking about elimination. But we definitely don't want pockets and folds and bends to collapse. We really want this system, this tube, to be clean and flushing material through efficiently. We don't want things getting hung up. Okay. And so we'll talk more about the as we go through the products for for the month and how they can be helpful for this process. But one of the things that I want to kind of cross over between the digestive system and the elimination system, especially as it regards to the large intestine or the colon, is our fabulous product Digest and Cleanse. It's these oil capsules that are very cooling and soothing. So if we really feel like we've got a very irritated, abdominal area, and again, especially the transverse, where does this capsule open up? It actually opens up in the duodenum, and the duodenum sits right there. So if it's going to help be soothing and it penetrates all the way through the tissue, which we know it does, then when that capsule breaks open, it's going to also potentially soothe the colon as well. That's a great way to work on keeping the soothing action of getting a supplement that's going to be very cooling and soothing if we have a very irritated colon. Okay, so that's a great product to carry over across between the digestion part and this elimination part, especially as we talk about the tube. So now let's just do a little bit of breathing again, because we've got this image we kind of have, but we really want to make a physical connection to this and get to know and be familiar with this. And so we've been doing this through breath, and I call it the Therapeutic Breath system. So as I breathe in, I'm going to make that connection and with my thought process, and I'm going to breathe in, and I'm going to go ahead and start down at the appendix. I'm actually missing my appendix, had that taken out as a child. And so I'm going to breathe down into that area, and it's going to likely have some trauma from just having been ripped out and cut open and ripped out. And well, I say ripped, I mean obviously they cut it out. But as a child at a small, relatively young age, that was a pretty traumatic thing. So I'm going to breathe down. And you can put your hand down into this area where the appendix is or would be. And I'm going to breathe into that, and then I'm going to come up the ascending colon. And remember, it folds to the back. So I'm going to put my hand almost all the way to the back of the rib cage, and then come around to the front to this transverse colon, and then dive back again to that bend underneath the spleen, and then down, and the sigmoid colon. Now, the sigmoid colon, if this is the left hip, the sigmoid colon actually often gets adhered to the inside of the left hip and adhered to the psoas muscle, okay? And when that happens, it affects our gait. We kind of get hunched over the left. The left hip doesn't work so well, and you get the hips getting off, out of balance. You might go to the chiropractor, and they might try to keep your hips adjusted, but it just keeps coming out. And one of the reasons might be is that the colon's gotten inflamed and adhered to that inside hip wall. And so here's where visceral work can be useful. So you might want to look into visceral work for your organs, and this is something that would be true for any organs, any abdominal. I mean, it can be done on any tissue, but we talked a little bit about the self-massage part with the stomach and the liver and how the organs move. Well, all of those organs need to slide and move, that the whole system's supposed to kind of do its thing. So the visceral work there's one of the most common training systems is called Upledger. So if you wanted to look that up, you'd be able to find someone. But if you call a local therapist, a massage therapist, and ask who does or who is trained in visceral work, visceral release or visceral massage, and they'll tell you that usually if they're not trained, then they'll say, oh, I think that Susie down the road is, and they'll kind of massage therapists talk to each other a lot of times and know each other. So ask around and see if there's a visceral therapist near you, and you can have your guts massaged, which I know it sounds maybe like it would be painful or oh, it's really deep and painful. No, it's very, very gentle work, and it can be very powerful to help structurally release the restrictions that are going on inside. And here we are trying to be well and trying to change our diet and trying to get these, take supplements and everything. But if the colon is reacting structurally to a postural issue, it's adhered to the other organs, and it's a big mess down there, it really, really helps to get this released. Now, I'm not saying you couldn't do that with some of your own massage. So, we're going to be doing a more massage with the colon specifically. But, if you go back and look at that video for abdominal massage that we did for liver and stomach, that's the kind of work you could be doing just to massage and enhance that massage with essential oils. Whether it's, we talked about digest and JuvaFlex, but you could use any oil you wanted. Lemon oil, even as simple as that. Okay, so the colon, then I mentioned we're going to do some breathing. So let's take a minute or two to do a little bit of breathing. And again, I'm just going to follow that tube up the left or up the right side, curve back and around to the front. Now, that's a listening breath. I'm just making a connection. Now I want to breathe in and get a sense of, an image, ask for that image. And so this is such an easy image to use for a rose bush because we have a lot of bacteria and stuff in our gut, and you can look at the rose bush and see if it's infected or, is there something, a little growing on it, that little growth or something is not supposed to be there. So I'm going to breathe into my whole colon, just make that, I've already made that connection, so I'm going to ask it to kind of talk to me and give me the image in the rose bush. And, I'm actually seeing really big thorns. So something's going on, where maybe I interpret that to be that my colon is defending against something. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a boost, maybe breathe in protection for my colon. And what does that look like? I mean, whether that's white light, that comes in and just kind of strengthens, or whether that's a silver shimmer, like a metal, silver armor that to protect. Whatever works for you. It's not critical that I give you that image, but I can just state I'm going to breathe in protection for my colon. And actually just that thought right there, I just did that. I breathed in protection for my colon, and my whole system went, oh, thank you. So very powerful, our intention, what we do with our mind. And so now another little action breath. I'm just going to do the scrubby bubbles. You remember that image? We do the scrubby bubbles. And so I'm going to have those little scrubby bubbles run around inside there and clean the colon and clean up anything that shouldn't be there. And again, I'm kind of specifying in my imagery here that anything that shouldn't be there needs to go flush out. And we're going to allow the good bacteria to be there. We want that. There's a lot of bacteria that needs to be in the gut, and so we need to care for those. Cultivate it just like we would. A field. And so I'm going to imagine I'm going to invite those good bacteria to be healthy. Okay. And I'm going to bring those scrubby bubbles in and breathe those down the tube and have them race around cleaning. And don't be too shocked if, as you do this kind of breathing, you start to feel a little bit of movement going on. That's okay. That's good. We want things to move around. But again, I'm using my diaphragm, so I'm pushing down. I am physically massaging the organs and the colon, transverse colon, and the flexors in particular. And I can actually kind of use my diaphragm to go down the right flexor, left flexor. Oh, I just adjusted something in my neck, and then across the front. Again, I'm pressing that diaphragm down, and it's pressing against the organs underneath and massaging. Okay, so again, I can just breathe in light and vitality and gratitude and allow things to start to move. We'll talk more about movements and all kinds of elimination type processes because this is the month for that. So hang in there for the moment. Let's just make this little connection to the finishing out the tube. And of course, we didn't go all the way to the rectum, but we'll do a little bit more of that. And just to feeling that, and I'm actually probably need to go use the restroom. So happy wellness, and we'll see you tomorrow.